These ergonomic improvements are superficial, Samantha. Our clients expect innovation that actually transforms user experience, my business partner said, dismissing my furniture design presentation in front of executives from Herman Miller. The product development team exchanged uncertain glances, reconsidering their initial enthusiasm. My partner, Jonathan Hayes, smiled confidently and opened his tablet with practiced authority. Let me show you the modular seating system I've been developing that addresses these concerns more comprehensively. I sat in the Chicago conference room on the 18th floor, watching Jonathan present industrial design work that was unmistakably mine. The innovative joint mechanism was mine, developed through months of prototyping and engineering refinement. The modular configuration system was mine, based on extensive user research I'd conducted. The ergonomic improvements that reduced lower back strain were mine, validated through biomechanical testing I'd arranged. Even the sustainable material specifications and manufacturing process innovations came directly from technical development I'd shared with him during our design studio partnership. This was the 19th time in 18 months that Jonathan had stolen my industrial design work and presented it as his own creative vision to clients, manufacturers, or patent examiners. I'd documented every single instance meticulously, building a comprehensive archive of evidence that would be impossible to dispute. I'd gathered irrefutable proof through design patents filed in my name, original CAD files with complete metadata and revision histories, detailed prototyping logs, and testimony from fabricators and engineers who'd worked directly with me on development. Because what neither Jonathan nor these Herman Miller executives sitting across the polished conference table knew was that I'd already filed design patents on all my original industrial design concepts with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I'd secured signed contracts with 3 major furniture manufacturers who wanted to license my designs directly, not through Rivera Hayes Design Studio. I'd been approached by 2 prestigious design firms in New York about senior designer positions with equity stakes. I'd also consulted extensively with intellectual property attorneys who confirmed that Jonathan had absolutely no legal rights to designs I'd created independently, regardless of our business partnership structure or his attempted patent applications. In exactly 72 hours, I would dissolve our design studio partnership through formal legal channels and reveal publicly that every award-winning design Jonathan had been claiming credit for over the past 18 months was actually my creative and technical work. Every design was protected by filed patents showing me as the sole inventor and supported by comprehensive CAD file documentation proving authorship beyond any doubt. His studio would lose its entire design portfolio overnight. It would lose its major manufacturing clients who'd been told Jonathan was the lead designer. It would lose its industry reputation built entirely on stolen innovations. Mine would launch with the same designs he'd tried to steal, with proper attribution finally restored, and with licensing opportunities he'd deliberately blocked through his systematic exploitation. Before we witness how a talented industrial designer whose work was stolen for years used design patent law and manufacturing relationships to destroy her exploitative partner while launching her own successful practice, I want to thank you for being part of this community. A community that believes design theft deserves the same serious consequences as any other form of stealing. A community that understands creative plagiarism in product development should be exposed publicly and punished severely. If you've had your designs stolen by partners or employers, if you've watched colleagues claim credit for your innovations, if you've been the invisible creative force behind someone else's studio success while they collected awards and licensing fees that belong to you, this story will resonate deeply. Hit that subscribe button to join thousands of others who appreciate stories where careful documentation and strategic planning overcome exploitation in creative industries. Now let's step into the competitive world of industrial design where a brilliant designer's innovations were systematically stolen by her charismatic business partner. Where industry relationships and studio hierarchies enabled ongoing exploitation. Where 18 months of careful preparation and evidence gathering created the foundation for complete professional destruction and creative triumph. My name is Samantha Rivera, and I'm a 34-year-old industrial designer originally from San Diego, California. I grew up in a family where making things with your hands was valued as highly as academic achievement. My father, Miguel, owned a custom furniture workshop where he built high-end residential pieces for architects and interior designers throughout Southern California. My mother, Elena, was a mechanical engineer who worked in aerospace manufacturing, designing components for commercial aircraft. I was surrounded from earliest childhood by discussions about form and function, manufacturing processes, material properties, and the intersection of aesthetic beauty with practical utility. I learned about three-dimensional problem solving when I was 11 years old, spending weekends in my father's workshop watching him transform raw materials into functional art. He taught me systematically about joinery techniques, wood properties, and how different species behaved under stress, finishing methods that enhanced rather than obscured natural characteristics. He explained that good furniture design required understanding not just how pieces looked but how they were manufactured, how they would be used daily, how they would age and develop character over decades. Those early lessons in the workshop shaped everything about how I approach industrial design even today. My father emphasized that beautiful design meant nothing if construction was poor or materials inappropriate for the application. He'd show me furniture from different periods and makers, explaining why certain pieces endured while others failed. Arts and crafts movement pieces with honest construction and appropriate materials. Mid-century modern designs that combined new manufacturing techniques with timeless proportions. Contemporary work that pushed boundaries while respecting fundamental principles. He taught me to think carefully about user experience, not just visual aesthetics. How would someone actually interact with this chair daily? Would the proportions work for different body types? Would the finish hold up to real use? How would joints perform under stress over years? These questions became instinctive, forming the foundation of my design philosophy. My mother contributed the critical engineering perspective to my design education. As a mechanical engineer working in aerospace, she possessed deep knowledge of material science, stress analysis, manufacturing tolerances, and quality control systems. She taught me that beautiful design had to be buildable, that creative visions meant nothing if they couldn't be manufactured reliably at appropriate cost and quality levels. She'd bring home material samples and technical specifications, explaining properties and applications. How aluminum alloys compared to steel for different structural applications. Why certain polymers worked for specific uses while others degraded. How manufacturing processes affected material performance and cost. These lessons taught me that industrial design existed at the intersection of creativity and engineering, that the best designers understood both aesthetics and technical constraints. I remember one specific project when I was 15 that crystallized these lessons from both parents. Our high school assigned a furniture design challenge, asking students to create ergonomic seating for long study sessions. Most classmates sketched conventional chairs with minor variations. I approached it systematically, researching biomechanics and posture, studying how the human spine functioned during extended sitting, analyzing existing ergonomic furniture to understand what worked and what failed. I designed a chair that supported the natural S-curve of the spine through carefully calculated angles and support points. I specified high-density foam with specific compression characteristics for the seat. I created a rocking mechanism that encouraged subtle movement, preventing static posture that caused discomfort. I built a full-scale prototype in my father's workshop, refining proportions through iterative testing with different users. The resulting chair worked remarkably well, providing genuine comfort during extended use. My father helped me photograph it professionally and document the design process comprehensively. The project won regional and state design competitions, was exhibited at a museum of contemporary design, and attracted attention from several furniture manufacturers interested in developing the concept further. That validation, at 15, taught me that rigorous design thinking combined with proper execution could create innovations that improved people's lives tangibly. I earned a full scholarship to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, one of the most prestigious industrial design programs in the country. Art Center was brutally demanding, pushing students to develop both exceptional creative vision and sophisticated technical capabilities. The program maintained extremely high standards, regularly failing students who couldn't meet professional-level expectations. Faculty consisted primarily of practicing designers who worked for major manufacturers and consultancies, bringing current industry practices directly into their teaching. My sophomore-year professor, David Chen, had been lead designer at IDEO for 12 years before transitioning to teaching. He brought that elite consultancy experience directly into the classroom, pushing us relentlessly to think about user needs, manufacturing realities, business constraints, and how design innovations created value in competitive markets. He taught us that professional industrial design required balancing multiple competing demands simultaneously while maintaining creative excellence. David was demanding but extraordinarily generous with students who demonstrated commitment and talent. He'd spend hours reviewing design concepts, providing detailed critiques that identified both strengths and fundamental problems. He connected promising students with industry contacts, wrote recommendations that opened doors at top firms, and maintained relationships with former students throughout their careers. He became not just a teacher but a mentor whose guidance would prove invaluable years later when I faced exploitation. During junior year, I secured a competitive summer internship at Herman Miller in Michigan, working in their research and development division. Herman Miller was legendary in furniture design, having collaborated with Charles and Ray Eames, George Nelson, and other design masters who defined modern furniture. The experience of working where design history had been made was absolutely inspiring, showing me what excellence actually looked like at the highest level. I learned about the company's rigorous design development process, how they conducted extensive user research before sketching concepts, how they built and tested numerous prototypes, refining designs through systematic iteration, how they balanced aesthetic vision with manufacturing efficiency and cost targets, how they protected innovations through comprehensive patent strategies. The sophistication and professionalism required for furniture design at this level was revelatory. One project during that internship involved assisting on ergonomic testing for a new office chair design. I watched senior designers coordinate with biomechanics researchers, analyzing pressure distribution and postural support through sophisticated measurement systems. They tested prototypes with hundreds of users representing different body types, collecting quantitative data about comfort and support. They refined designs based on this evidence, not subjective preferences. The scientific rigor applied to furniture design was eye-opening, showing me that the best design combined artistic vision with engineering discipline. My senior thesis project involved designing a modular storage system for small urban apartments, addressing the challenge of maximizing functionality in minimal space. I conducted extensive research about how people actually used storage in constrained environments. I interviewed residents of micro-apartments, photographed their creative storage solutions, analyzed what worked and what created frustration. I developed user personas and usage scenarios that would guide design decisions. The resulting system featured components that could be configured differently for different needs. Wall-mounted units that provided storage without consuming floor space. Nesting tables that offered surface area when needed but stacked compactly when not. Dual-purpose pieces that served multiple functions efficiently. The entire system was designed around a consistent modular dimension that allowed components to work together flexibly. I built full-scale prototypes in the school's fabrication lab, testing functionality and refining details. I created comprehensive technical documentation including CAD models, manufacturing specifications, and assembly instructions. I developed cost estimates based on realistic material and labor calculations. The thesis demonstrated both creative vision and practical execution, showing I could develop designs from concept through production-ready documentation. The thesis earned departmental honors and was featured in several design publications as an example of thoughtful response to contemporary urban living challenges. Multiple images from the project won student design awards regionally and nationally. The recognition and published work helped me secure a position at a prestigious design consultancy immediately after graduation, unusual for designers just starting their careers. After graduation, I joined Frog Design in San Francisco, one of the most respected industrial design consultancies globally. Frog had designed iconic products for Apple, Microsoft, Sony, and countless other major brands. Working there meant learning from designers who shaped how millions of people interacted with technology and products daily. I spent 4 years there, working my way systematically from junior designer to project lead on major product developments. My first significant project as lead designer involved developing consumer electronics packaging that would reduce environmental impact while maintaining premium brand perception. The client wanted to eliminate plastic completely while ensuring products remained protected during shipping and retail display. The challenge was creating packaging that felt luxurious using only sustainable materials. I developed a packaging system using molded paper pulp and recycled cardboard that provided excellent protection while communicating environmental values visually. The design used precise structural engineering to create rigid forms from renewable materials. Surface treatments and printing techniques created premium aesthetics without plastic coatings. The resulting packaging performed beautifully in testing while reducing material costs and environmental impact significantly. The packaging won multiple design awards and was featured in case studies about sustainable product development. The client attributed significant positive brand perception improvements to the packaging redesign. Several other companies contacted Frog specifically requesting similar sustainable packaging solutions. The project demonstrated that environmental responsibility and commercial success weren't contradictory but could reinforce each other through thoughtful design. I worked on numerous high-profile product developments during those 4 years, steadily building expertise across consumer electronics, furniture, medical devices, and transportation applications. There was a medical device that made complex diagnostic procedures more accessible in developing countries through simplified, robust design. A consumer electronics product that achieved distinctive aesthetics while meeting aggressive cost targets through innovative manufacturing approaches. A furniture line for contract markets that combined commercial durability with residential comfort and style. One project I'm particularly proud of from that period involved designing assistive devices for people with limited hand mobility. The challenge was creating products that enhanced capability without looking medical or institutional. Users wanted tools that worked effectively but didn't advertise disability. I developed a line of kitchen utensils with ergonomic handles that provided secure grip and control for people with arthritis or limited strength while looking attractive enough for anyone to use. I spent significant time with users, observing how they interacted with existing products and understanding what frustrated them. I built numerous prototypes, refining shapes and materials through iterative testing with real users. The resulting products worked exceptionally well, providing genuine functional improvements. Multiple users told me the designs had meaningfully improved their independence and quality of life. The project demonstrated that inclusive design benefited everyone while serving people who needed it most. By my 3rd year at Frog, I'd become known internally for developing elegant solutions to complex functional challenges. Project managers would assign me products where conventional approaches had failed, where clients needed innovations that balanced multiple competing requirements successfully. I was proud of these contributions and the professional recognition they represented, but increasingly frustrated by working within someone else's consultancy where individual designer attribution remained limited by company policies and client confidentiality. I wanted to pursue my own design vision more directly. To work with manufacturers and brands without filtering everything through consultancy structures. To build a portfolio of work clearly attributed to me personally rather than absorbed into corporate IP. To control which projects I accepted and how design solutions evolved. I wanted my own industrial design practice where I made creative and business decisions independently. At 31 years old, I made the decision to start my own industrial design studio focusing on furniture and consumer products. I had strong technical skills proven across diverse applications. I had a solid track record of successful product developments that had won awards and performed commercially. I had enough industry connections and professional relationships to make independence potentially feasible. What I didn't have was extensive business development capabilities, established direct manufacturer relationships, or the operational infrastructure that design studios needed to compete effectively for major contracts. I met Jonathan Hayes at a furniture design conference in Chicago during a 3-day event focused on sustainable manufacturing and materials innovation. He was 42 years old, exceptionally charismatic and seemingly well connected throughout the furniture industry. He had an MBA from Northwestern and claimed 20 years of experience in furniture business development and manufacturing operations. He approached me after my presentation on biomechanical furniture design, saying he'd been specifically looking for a talented designer partner to build a studio focused on innovative residential and contract furniture. We met for dinner the following evening. Jonathan talked enthusiastically and convincingly about his vision for a boutique design studio that could compete effectively for premium furniture contracts while maintaining uncompromising design excellence. He said the market had strong demand for distinctive furniture that genuinely improved user experience beyond superficial styling, but most designers either lacked business sophistication or worked through large firms that limited creative control and took significant percentages. Jonathan explained extensively how his background in furniture manufacturing had taught him exactly how major brands made design procurement decisions. He understood complex supply chain management, manufacturing cost structures, retail distribution channels that determined commercial viability. He knew how to position design services to appeal to manufacturers willing to invest in innovation that would differentiate their brands and command premium pricing. Over several meetings spanning a few weeks, Jonathan outlined in detail how a partnership might work operationally. He'd handle all business development, manufacturer relationships, contract negotiation, and studio operations management. I'd focus entirely on design, working with manufacturers on product development and managing all aspects of innovation. The division seemed absolutely perfect, allowing me to concentrate completely on creative work while someone else handled business aspects I found less engaging than actual design. Jonathan had connections to product managers at major furniture manufacturers across residential, contract, and specialty markets. He understood the complex business infrastructure of furniture production, including overseas manufacturing coordination. He could handle everything from initial client acquisition through patent filing and licensing negotiations. He said my design talent combined with his business expertise and industry connections would create something unique and competitive. The division of responsibilities seemed genuinely ideal and complementary. We formed Rivera Hayes Design Studio as a 50-50 partnership, with both our names appearing equally on all LLC formation documents. Jonathan handled initial business development activities while I focused on building our design portfolio and establishing development capabilities. We secured studio space in Chicago's River North District, a location that Jonathan insisted would convey the right professional image to manufacturers we wanted to attract. The studio space was genuinely impressive and well equipped. It featured a large design area with professional CAD workstations running SolidWorks and Rhino, a complete materials library with samples from hundreds of suppliers, and a well-equipped prototyping workshop with woodworking tools, metalworking equipment, and 3D printing capabilities. Jonathan insisted on premium facilities and professional equipment, arguing convincingly that the space needed to demonstrate design excellence and technical capability to manufacturers accustomed to working with established studios. We installed comfortable client meeting areas where product managers could review designs and discuss development. Professional presentation equipment for displaying CAD models and renderings. A photography setup for documenting prototypes. The operational foundation appeared absolutely solid and professionally managed. Jonathan hired a studio manager and technical assistant, bringing professional organizational structure to operations. He designed our branding and marketing materials himself, creating a sophisticated visual identity. He set up comprehensive business infrastructure including accounting systems, supplier relationships for materials and fabrication, negotiated favorable lease terms, created detailed project management systems. Everything seemed properly established. The early months were genuinely productive and exciting. I created extensive furniture design portfolios for different market applications we wanted to pursue, showcasing our studio's capabilities across residential seating, contract furniture, storage systems, and specialty products. I developed complete design concepts that demonstrated both aesthetic sophistication and technical innovation. Jonathan would review designs regularly and provide feedback, always expressing enthusiasm about the work I was producing. He'd bring potential manufacturer clients to the studio to see my design work, presenting these concepts as examples of what we could deliver for their product lines. I created comprehensive design projects demonstrating our capabilities across various furniture categories and applications. A residential seating collection using innovative joint mechanisms that simplified assembly while improving structural performance. A modular office furniture system that adapted to different workspace configurations flexibly. A storage line combining minimalist aesthetics with maximized functionality. A specialty lighting collection integrating LED technology with sustainable materials and manufacturing. I shared everything openly with Jonathan during this development phase. I'd walk him through my design thinking about each project comprehensively. I'd explain the engineering approaches and material choices behind each concept. Why I'd specified certain joinery methods or manufacturing processes. How I'd achieved particular aesthetic effects through form development and surface treatments. I thought we were partners genuinely building a studio together, that my openness about design processes was normal collaboration between business partners with different expertise areas. Jonathan would ask detailed questions during these design reviews, showing what seemed like genuine interest in understanding the work beyond surface appreciation. He'd inquire about specific engineering solutions and how I'd resolved certain functional challenges. About material selections and why I preferred particular substrates for different applications. About manufacturing processes and the cost implications of various production approaches. I appreciated his engagement, interpreting it as a business partner intelligently learning enough about design to effectively represent our studio's capabilities to potential manufacturer clients. The theft started subtly during early manufacturer presentations, so gradually that I initially didn't recognize it as problematic. Jonathan would describe designs using language that subtly claimed creative credit without technically lying outright. He'd say, "We developed this joint system," or, "our innovation addresses," when discussing designs I'd created entirely independently through months of prototyping and refinement. He'd present furniture concepts without clearly stating that I, specifically, had created every design element and technical solution. The language was ambiguous enough that manufacturers could reasonably assume Jonathan had been directly involved in design development rather than purely business operations. At first, I told myself this was probably normal business communication for partnerships, that using "we" made sense when representing a studio collectively. But the pattern became increasingly troubling when Jonathan started taking manufacturer meetings without me present, returning afterward with signed development contracts for furniture lines where manufacturers apparently believed Jonathan himself was the lead designer who would be creating their products. The first absolutely undeniable instance of theft involved a major residential furniture line for a respected manufacturer trying to establish stronger presence in the premium market. The client needed innovative seating that would differentiate their brand through genuine functional improvements, not just styling variations on conventional forms. They wanted furniture that would justify premium pricing through demonstrable user experience enhancements. I developed a complete seating collection over several months of intensive work. The core innovation was a novel suspension system that provided dynamic support, automatically adjusting to different users and sitting positions. I'd researched biomechanics extensively, studying how the human body shifted during extended sitting and what support patterns reduced fatigue and discomfort. I'd built and tested dozens of prototypes, refining the suspension mechanism through systematic iteration with users representing different body types and preferences. The resulting seating design worked remarkably well, providing comfort that genuinely surpassed conventional furniture through intelligent engineering rather than just additional padding. I developed comprehensive technical documentation including CAD models, engineering drawings, material specifications, and manufacturing process guidelines. I coordinated with fabricators to build presentation prototypes that demonstrated the innovation convincingly. I spent weeks on intensive development work, solving complex engineering challenges to make the suspension system reliable and manufacturable at appropriate costs. Working closely with the manufacturer's engineering team to ensure designs were production-ready. Coordinating with their marketing team to develop compelling narratives about functional innovations. I personally created every aspect of the design, made all creative and technical decisions, and developed all documentation. The manufacturer was absolutely thrilled with the design, seeing clear differentiation potential. Jonathan attended the final presentation with me, positioned as studio principal and business leader. During the presentation, I walked through the design development systematically, explaining the biomechanical research, the suspension innovation, and the engineering solutions that made everything work. The manufacturer representatives were genuinely excited and wanted to proceed immediately with production development. After the presentation ended and we'd said goodbye to the manufacturer team, I overheard the product development director mention being impressed by Jonathan's innovative design thinking and his sophisticated engineering approach to comfort. I realized with growing alarm that Jonathan had deliberately positioned himself as the actual designer during preliminary conversations and meetings I hadn't been part of. The credit theft had moved beyond ambiguous language to outright misrepresentation of creative authorship. The exploitation escalated systematically from there. Jonathan began regularly taking design meetings without me present, presenting my furniture concepts and prototypes as examples of his own design work. He'd return from these meetings with signed contracts and tell me enthusiastically about furniture lines he'd sold to manufacturers, using designs I'd created to win their confidence. He was actively performing design expertise he absolutely didn't possess, claiming credit for creative vision and technical problem-solving that were entirely mine. I confronted Jonathan directly about claiming credit for my design work. He looked genuinely confused by my concern, saying that as equal business partners all studio work was inherently ours, regardless of who had physically created specific designs. He said I was being unnecessarily territorial about individual attribution, that this kind of thinking was counterproductive to building a successful design studio. He suggested my concern about personal credit revealed immaturity about how professional design businesses actually operated. The gaslighting was sophisticated and effective, making me genuinely question whether my perception of the situation was reasonable or if I was being overly sensitive. That evening, deeply troubled by the interaction, I called my art center mentor David Chen. I explained the situation in comprehensive detail, describing Jonathan's behavior patterns and his justifications for them. David listened carefully without interrupting, then delivered a clear and firm assessment. He said he'd seen this exact exploitation pattern before in design studios and consultancies, where business partners or studio principals systematically exploited talented designers while claiming their innovations. He explained that design patents and copyrights in creative work were legally protected, that I owned rights to designs I personally created regardless of business partnership structures, and that I should immediately start documenting everything meticulously and taking steps to protect my intellectual property legally. Following David's advice, I began systematically filing design patents on every furniture innovation I created through the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Design patents protect the ornamental appearance and innovative features of functional products. I started keeping detailed design development logs documenting exactly when and how I created each concept. I maintained comprehensive archives of original CAD files with complete revision histories and embedded metadata showing creation dates, modification sequences, and technical information that proved authorship definitively. I began deliberately building independent relationships with manufacturers separate from Rivera Hayes Design Studio's business structure. I was methodically gathering legal evidence while simultaneously planning my eventual exit strategy. During the next 18 months of careful documentation, Jonathan's systematic theft continued and actually escalated dramatically in scope and boldness. He submitted my furniture designs to major industry competitions under his name as lead designer, winning several prestigious awards that should have been attributed to me. He spoke at furniture design conferences about his design philosophy and process, while showing exclusively my work as examples and case studies. He gave interviews to design publications about his innovative approaches, using my furniture to illustrate his supposed creative vision. He was building his professional reputation entirely on design work he hadn't created, while I remained invisible to the industry despite doing all actual design development and innovation. One particularly egregious instance involved a prestigious design award from the International Furnishings and Design Association. I'd submitted one of my modular furniture designs through our studio, assuming both our names would be listed as the design team. When the award announcement came, only Jonathan's name appeared as designer. He'd deliberately submitted the entry listing himself as sole designer without telling me. When I confronted him about it, he said he'd assumed I wouldn't mind since it was studio work and the recognition benefited both of us professionally. He attended the awards ceremony in High Point without me, accepting the award publicly and giving a speech about his design process and inspiration. He described developing the modular system through careful user research and iterative prototyping, accurately describing work I'd done while claiming it as his own experience. The audience of furniture industry professionals applauded his supposed innovation. Nobody knew I'd created the awarded design. I watched video of his acceptance speech later, documenting it as evidence while feeling professionally devastated and personally betrayed. Another incident involved a major furniture manufacturer asking specific technical questions about one of my innovative joint designs during a conference call. Jonathan was on the call representing our studio while I listened silently as he'd requested, supposedly to avoid overwhelming the client with too many voices. The engineer asked detailed questions about load calculations, material stress distribution, and manufacturing tolerances for the joint system. Jonathan gave answers that were technically nonsensical, describing structural principles that contradicted basic engineering physics. I had to send him frantic instant messages with correct information, which he then repeated to the client as if he'd known it originally. The manufacturer's engineering team seemed confused by Jonathan's initial wrong answers followed by contradictory correct information, but they didn't pursue the inconsistency. I had to create detailed technical drawings and specifications afterward to clarify everything properly. Jonathan presented those drawings to the client as if he'd created them, never acknowledging my actual authorship. The cognitive dissonance was surreal, watching someone claim expertise they completely lacked. There was also a design exhibition at NeoCon, the major furniture industry trade show, where Rivera Hayes Design Studio had a booth displaying our furniture portfolio. Jonathan staffed the booth for most of the show, presenting himself as the designer to attendees and potential clients. He'd give detailed descriptions of design concepts and engineering innovations, accurately explaining work I'd done while implying he'd created it. Several design journalists interviewed him about pieces in the exhibition, and the resulting articles credited Jonathan as the innovative designer behind our studio's work. I attended the show for only one day due to Jonathan insisting we didn't both need to be present. When I arrived, I overheard him giving a presentation to a group of interested manufacturers. He was describing my ergonomic chair design's suspension system, explaining the biomechanical research and engineering development. He was performing designer expertise convincingly enough that the audience asked sophisticated follow-up questions. I stood at the edge of the crowd listening to him claim my work, documenting everything while maintaining professional composure despite feeling angry and violated. One attendee, a furniture design professor from Cranbrook Academy, approached me afterward. She'd recognized me from my Art Center portfolio that had been published years earlier. She asked directly whether I'd designed the furniture in our booth, saying the work showed clear continuity with my student design philosophy. I hesitated, not wanting to create a scene at the trade show, but confirmed I'd created the designs. She looked troubled, clearly understanding something problematic was happening. She gave me her card and suggested we talk privately sometime, an offer I appreciated but didn't pursue at that moment. Each instance of theft felt like a piece of my professional identity being stolen. Every time Jonathan claimed credit for my work, I felt increasingly invisible despite creating all the actual innovations. Every award he accepted, every interview he gave, every presentation where he showed my designs as examples of his creative process, was another instance of erasure. I was becoming a ghost in my own career, the invisible creator behind someone else's growing reputation. The emotional toll was significant and cumulative. I'd wake up dreading going to the studio, knowing Jonathan would likely steal credit for whatever I designed that day. Every manufacturer meeting where he performed design expertise felt like watching identity theft in real time. Every award announcement listing his name for my work created fresh anger and frustration that I had to suppress while maintaining professional composure. The constant gaslighting made me question my own perceptions and judgment. During those 18 months of documentation, I was simultaneously building my exit strategy with the same systematic care I applied to furniture design development. I filed design patents on 23 separate furniture innovations, creating comprehensive legal record of my inventorship. Each patent application included detailed drawings, technical specifications, and declarations stating I was the sole inventor. The patents would provide irrefutable proof of authorship that would withstand any legal challenge Jonathan might attempt. I maintained meticulous design development records for every project. Digital notebooks documenting research, ideation sketches, development progression, prototype iterations, and final specifications. I saved every revision of every CAD file with metadata intact, creating a complete digital paper trail showing design evolution. I photographed prototypes at each development stage with dated images. I gathered testimony from fabricators, engineers, and manufacturers who'd worked directly with me, confirming I'd created all designs attributed to Rivera Hayes Design Studio. The documentation became almost obsessive in thoroughness. I created comprehensive spreadsheets tracking every furniture design I'd created since forming the partnership. For each design, I recorded creation dates, development timelines, manufacturer presentations, evidence of Jonathan claiming credit, and supporting documentation proving my authorship. The spreadsheet eventually contained over 40 entries, a complete record of systematic theft. I also started attending therapy to process the psychological impact of ongoing exploitation and gaslighting. My therapist helped me understand that Jonathan's behavior constituted deliberate manipulation, not evidence that my perceptions were incorrect or unreasonable. She helped me maintain clarity about what was actually happening while managing the emotional stress of executing a long-term exit plan. The therapeutic support was essential for maintaining psychological stability while working alongside someone who was systematically stealing my creative work. I began quietly building direct relationships with manufacturers, carefully establishing rapport with product managers and engineers who worked with Rivera Hayes Design Studio. I'd suggest coffee meetings to discuss technical aspects of ongoing projects, positioning these as normal design collaboration while actually building personal connections that could potentially transfer when I left. I'd share my direct contact information, establishing communication channels independent of studio infrastructure that Jonathan controlled. Several manufacturers told me privately during these conversations that they specifically valued my design work and technical problem-solving abilities. They said they appreciated how I understood both creative vision and manufacturing realities. They mentioned that my designs were consistently more innovative and better developed than typical furniture they saw. These conversations confirmed that manufacturers recognized my actual contributions despite Jonathan's credit theft, that my work had significant value independent of Rivera Hayes Design Studios' brand. I consulted extensively with intellectual property attorneys who specialized in design patent law and creative industry disputes. The initial consultation was revelatory and empowering. The attorney explained that design patent and copyright ownership in industrial design was remarkably straightforward under U.S. law. The designer who actually creates an innovation owns the intellectual property rights automatically upon creation. Business partnerships don't change this fundamental principle unless there's specific written work for higher language transferring ownership, which our partnership agreement completely lacked. I brought our partnership agreement for the attorney to review carefully. She examined it thoroughly and confirmed it contained absolutely no language transferring intellectual property rights from individual designers to the business entity. Every furniture design I'd created remained my protected work legally, regardless of being developed within the partnership structure. Jonathan had no legal claim whatsoever to designs I'd personally created. This legal clarity was both validating and strategically crucial. The attorney advised me on exactly how to document everything properly for potential legal proceedings. Continue filing design patents systematically through the USPTO, which creates public record and enables significant damages in infringement cases. Maintain comprehensive CAD file archives with all metadata and revision histories intact. Gather detailed witness testimony from fabricators and engineers who'd observed my design work directly. Document all instances of Jonathan's false attribution systematically. Build an overwhelming evidence case that would withstand any legal challenge he might attempt. I also approached several furniture manufacturers directly about future collaborations, carefully testing whether they'd be interested in licensing my designs independently once I left Rivera Hayes Design Studio. I framed these conversations diplomatically, explaining I was considering launching an independent practice and wanted to understand potential manufacturer interest. The response was overwhelmingly positive and validating. Multiple manufacturers said they'd been working with Rivera Hayes specifically because of my design work and would absolutely be interested in licensing arrangements directly with me. I secured preliminary licensing agreements with 3 major manufacturers who committed to working with me independently. These weren't just verbal promises but actual signed letters of intent specifying product categories and approximate royalty terms. These agreements gave me financial security for the transition period, ensuring I'd have immediate revenue when leaving Rivera Hayes Design Studio rather than starting completely from scratch financially. I also began preparing the operational infrastructure for my independent practice meticulously. I researched studio space options in Chicago with good access to fabricators and materials suppliers. I investigated equipment needs and costs for running an independent design studio. I consulted with accountants about optimal business entity structures and tax implications. I developed comprehensive business plans and financial projections showing the practice could be financially sustainable. I wanted everything ready so I could launch Samantha Rivera Design immediately upon leaving, not lose valuable months to set up logistics. The preparation also included building a website and professional brand identity for my independent practice. I worked with a branding designer friend to create sophisticated visual identity that would position my practice as innovative and professionally capable. I prepared comprehensive portfolio presentations showcasing my furniture work with proper attribution finally restored. I drafted licensing agreements and development contracts. I established business banking and accounting infrastructure. Everything was ready and waiting for the right moment to activate. After exactly 18 months of systematic documentation and exhaustive preparation, I had absolutely everything needed to leave safely and successfully. Design patents filed and approved covering my major furniture innovations. Comprehensive documentation of Jonathan's theft spanning dozens of instances. Manufacturer licensing commitments providing immediate revenue security. Professional infrastructure ready to activate immediately. Legal counsel prepared to defend aggressively against any claims Jonathan might make. The foundation was absolutely solid and legally bulletproof. I scheduled a meeting with Jonathan to formally dissolve our partnership. I chose a Thursday morning, deliberately selecting a time when our studio assistant would be out at a fabricator meeting. I arrived at the studio at 8 o'clock sharp. I'd brought my attorney, Patricia Morrison, who specialized in design intellectual property disputes. Her presence would immediately signal this wasn't a normal business discussion. I also brought Thomas Kim, a furniture designer colleague who'd agreed to serve as an independent witness. I wanted third-party documentation of everything that would be said, knowing Jonathan's pattern of reframing conversations after the fact. Jonathan arrived at 8:15, immediately looking surprised and concerned to see 3 people waiting in our conference room. He looked at Patricia and Thomas with visible confusion, then at me with growing alarm. "Samantha, what's going on here? Why do you have attorneys and witnesses in our studio?" His voice carried an edge of anxiety I'd rarely heard from him before. I gestured calmly for him to sit down at the conference table. "Jonathan, I'm here to formally dissolve our business partnership effective immediately. I'm also here to inform you that I'll be pursuing legal action regarding your systematic theft of intellectual property and fraudulent misrepresentation of design authorship." His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, defensive anger, then attempted dismissiveness. "What are you talking about? This is absolutely insane, Samantha. We're partners. We built this studio together. This makes no sense." I opened the comprehensive folder I'd prepared meticulously and slid it across the polished conference table toward him. This dossier contains documentation of 19 specific instances where you fraudulently claimed authorship of furniture designs I created. It includes design patents filed with the USPTO showing me as the sole inventor of every major innovation in Rivera Hayes Design Studios' portfolio. It contains detailed design development logs with dated entries proving when and how I created each design. It includes witness testimony from fabricators, engineers, and manufacturers confirming I created all our studio's design work. It documents competition submissions, publication credits, and conference presentations where you fraudulently claimed my work as your own creative output. Jonathan opened the folder slowly and began flipping through pages, his expression changing noticeably as he realized the comprehensiveness and legal weight of the documentation. Page after page of damning evidence. Official patent certificates from the USPTO with my name. Email records with timestamps. Witness statements with signatures. Competition entry forms showing only his name on my designs. Publication articles crediting him exclusively. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. "This is ridiculous," he said, but his voice notably lacked its usual confidence. "We're business partners, Samantha. All studio work is collective output. This is just you being territorial about individual attribution. This is counterproductive to our success." Patricia leaned forward with professional authority. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Patricia Morrison, Ms. Rivera's intellectual property attorney. I need to correct several fundamental misunderstandings you appear to have about design patent law and creative rights. Under United States intellectual property law, the designer who creates an innovation automatically owns the intellectual property rights upon creation. Your partnership agreement contains absolutely no work-for-hire language that would transfer IP ownership to the business entity. Every furniture design Ms. Rivera personally created remains her legally protected intellectual property." Jonathan looked at Patricia with growing concern, then back at me with what seemed like genuine confusion. "Samantha, this is crazy. You can't just walk away from our partnership like this. We have contracts with manufacturers. We have obligations to clients. We have a business to run. I've consulted with 3 of our major manufacturer clients," I said calmly and clearly. "They've agreed to license my designs directly through my new independent practice, Samantha Rivera Design. They were working with Rivera Hayes specifically because of my furniture innovations. They've confirmed in writing they want to continue collaborating with me independently. His face flushed noticeably red with anger. You've been going behind my back? Stealing my clients? That's completely unethical, Samantha. That's a serious breach of partnership. Your clients? I kept my voice deliberately even and professional. Jonathan, you don't create any furniture designs. You've never created any design work for this studio. Every single innovation in our portfolio was created by me through months of research, prototyping, and engineering development. The manufacturers aren't yours. They licensed furniture I designed. I built the entire business infrastructure, Jonathan argued defensively. I brought in the manufacturers. I negotiated the licensing contracts. I created the operational systems that allowed you to focus purely on design work. This studio wouldn't exist at all without my business contributions and industry relationships. Your business contributions don't include creating a single furniture design, I replied firmly. And they especially don't include fraudulently claiming inventorship of my innovations. Page 32 of the dossier documents your interview with Interior Design magazine where you described your design process and your innovative approach to ergonomics while showing exclusively my furniture as examples and case studies. Jonathan flipped quickly to that page, his hand trembling slightly as he held the paper. I watched him read his own quoted words about design techniques and innovations he'd supposedly developed personally. His face showed clear recognition that this evidence was legally damning and professionally devastating. You submitted my modular seating design to the IFDA competition under your name as sole designer, I continued methodically. You accepted a prestigious design award for furniture I created. You gave an acceptance speech at the ceremony about your creative journey and design philosophy. That's not ambiguous business communication. That's deliberate fraud and misappropriation of intellectual property. I can explain all of this, Jonathan said, clearly struggling to formulate a coherent explanation. The way I presented things might have been unclear to some people, but I never actually intended to. You intended exactly what happened, I interrupted firmly. You systematically positioned yourself as the creative force behind our studio while I actually created all the design work and innovations. You built your professional reputation entirely on furniture you didn't design. That's intellectual property theft, and it's legally actionable. Jonathan stood up abruptly from his chair, which scraped loudly against the floor. Fine. You want to leave? Then leave. But you're not taking my manufacturer relationships. You're not taking my studio infrastructure that I built. And you absolutely aren't taking equipment I purchased with partnership funds. Patricia pulled out another prepared document smoothly. This is a detailed inventory of all equipment and materials Ms. Rivera will be removing from the studio premises. It includes only items she personally purchased or that were acquired specifically for her design work. She's leaving all equipment and infrastructure purchased through partnership funds. The complete purchase records and receipts are documented. And regarding manufacturer relationships, Patricia continued with professional authority. Manufacturers have absolute freedom to license designs from whichever designer they choose to work with. There's no enforceable non-compete agreement preventing Ms. Rivera from practicing industrial design independently. Any attempt to interfere with her independent manufacturer relationships would constitute tortious interference with business relations and would result in additional legal action. Jonathan sat back down heavily in his chair, looking increasingly defeated as the reality of his situation became clear. Samantha, please, let's talk about this reasonably like partners. We can restructure the partnership agreement. I'll give you more prominent attribution going forward. We can change the business name to Samantha Rivera Design Studio with me handling purely business operations. I'll adjust our revenue split significantly in your favor. Whatever terms you want, we can negotiate. I don't want a restructured partnership, I said clearly. I want my design work properly attributed to me as the actual creator. I want the career I've earned through my actual creative innovations, not filtered through someone who systematically steals credit. I've already registered Samantha Rivera Design as an independent business entity. I'm leaving today, Jonathan. You'll fail without me, Jonathan said, anger creeping back into his voice as desperation set in. You think you can handle business development? Manufacturer negotiations? Licensing contracts? You're a designer, Samantha, not a businessperson. You need me to succeed commercially. I've been handling manufacturer relationships very successfully while you stole credit, I replied calmly. The product managers and engineers I've worked with know exactly who created the furniture innovations they value. They're licensing directly from me specifically to continue working with my design capabilities. Jonathan's expression shifted to something uglier and more threatening. I'll sue you for breach of partnership agreement. For stealing proprietary client relationships that belong to this studio. For damages to the business entity. You won't get away with this. Patricia didn't seem remotely concerned by the threat. Any legal action you pursue will result in comprehensive public exposure of your systematic design patent infringement and fraudulent misrepresentation of inventorship. The evidence Ms. Rivera has gathered is exhaustive and legally irrefutable. She has witnessed testimony from multiple fabricators, engineers, and manufacturers. She has original CAD files with complete metadata and revision histories proving authorship definitively. She has design patents registered with the USPTO predating your false claims of inventorship. Additionally, Patricia continued, we're fully prepared to countersue for substantial damages based on your systematic misappropriation of Ms. Rivera's protected design work. Design patent infringement carries statutory damages that can be very significant. We've documented 19 separate instances of deliberate infringement. That potential legal liability is considerable, Mr. Hayes. Jonathan's face had gone noticeably pale. He was clearly beginning to understand the serious legal exposure his fraud had created. The bluster and defensive anger were visibly draining away, replaced by obvious fear about professional and financial consequences. What do you want from me? He asked quietly, his voice much smaller than usual. What do I need to do to make this situation go away? I want you to sign the partnership dissolution agreement, I said. I want you to acknowledge in writing that I created all furniture designs in Rivera Hayes Design Studios' portfolio. I want you to agree not to claim credit for any of my work going forward. And I want you to contact publications and competitions where you claimed my work and issue formal corrections attributing designs to me. If you comply fully with these requirements, Patricia added, Ms. Rivera is willing to forego pursuing financial damages for your past infringement. But any future misrepresentation of her work will result in immediate legal action and significant damages. Jonathan read through the dissolution agreement Patricia provided, taking several minutes to review each page carefully. His hand shook slightly as he turned pages. The agreement was comprehensive and unambiguous, leaving no room for misinterpretation about authorship or future obligations. He picked up the pen Patricia offered, hesitated for a long moment while reading one final time, then signed with a signature that looked shaky and uncertain. I watched him sign his name on the legal document that ended our partnership and acknowledged the truth he'd been hiding for 18 months. The signature lacked his usual confident flourish. Thomas Kim, serving as our witness, signed as well, creating formal documentation that Jonathan had agreed to these terms voluntarily. I need to gather my equipment and materials today, I said, standing up from the conference table. I'll be removing my computer workstations, personal design tools, materials library samples I purchased, and CAD file archives. I'm leaving all partnership-purchased equipment and the studio space infrastructure. Jonathan didn't respond verbally. He sat staring at the signed dissolution agreement on the table in front of him, probably beginning to process that his design studio had just lost its entire creative foundation. Without my furniture innovations, Rivera Hayes Design Studio had absolutely nothing to offer manufacturers. The impressive studio space, the expensive equipment, the operational infrastructure, all became worthless without design talent to sustain it. I spent the next 4 hours systematically and methodically packing my equipment and materials. My CAD workstations and software licenses. My personal design tools and prototyping equipment. My extensive materials library that I'd built over years. My backup drives containing all my CAD files, design documentation, and archived development work. Several fabricators who'd worked with me on projects helped me load equipment into a rental truck, multiple people commenting privately that they'd always known I created all the studio's design work and were genuinely glad I was finally getting proper attribution. By early afternoon, I'd removed everything that belonged to me personally from Rivera Hayes Design Studio. I took one final look around the space we'd built together, the well-equipped workshop where I'd created so much innovative furniture that Jonathan had systematically stolen credit for. Then I walked out, closing that chapter of my professional life permanently and decisively. Within 1 week, I'd officially launched Samantha Rivera Design from new studio space I'd secured in Chicago's West Loop. The space was smaller than what we'd had at Rivera Hayes but perfectly adequate for my needs. I installed my equipment, organized my materials library, and immediately began working on furniture developments for the 3 manufacturers who'd committed to licensing agreements. The industry response to my departure was swift and remarkably decisive. Manufacturers I'd worked with understood immediately what had actually been happening at Rivera Hayes Design Studio. Product managers who'd valued my design work transferred their collaborations to Samantha Rivera Design without hesitation. The 3 manufacturers with signed licensing agreements became my first major clients, providing immediate substantial revenue and validating my independent practice. Jonathan's professional reputation collapsed almost overnight once the truth emerged publicly in the design community. Industry colleagues who'd admired his award-winning furniture learned he'd systematically stolen credit from his female business partner and inventor. Design publications that had featured him issued corrections. Competition organizers who'd given him awards privately communicated embarrassment about being deceived by fraudulent entries. Rivera Hayes Design Studio lost manufacturer clients rapidly as word spread throughout the furniture industry about the intellectual property fraud. Several fabricators and engineers who'd worked with Rivera Hayes Design Studio publicly confirmed my account, describing how they'd watched Jonathan claim credit for work I'd created. Their testimony eliminated any remaining ambiguity about what had occurred. The design community response was harsh and absolutely unforgiving toward Jonathan. Credit theft and false patent claims are considered among the most serious ethical violations in design industries where intellectual property is fundamental. Within 8 months, Rivera Hayes Design Studio closed permanently. Jonathan attempted to rebrand and continue independently, but no credible manufacturer would work with him after the exposure of his systematic fraud. His professional design career was completely finished. The impressive studio space was released from its lease early. The expensive equipment was sold at significant loss. The operational infrastructure he'd built became worthless without creative talent to sustain commercial viability. Meanwhile, Samantha Rivera Design flourished immediately and dramatically. I completed furniture developments for the manufacturers that had committed to working with me. I won design awards with proper attribution finally restored, my name appearing on innovations I'd actually created. I spoke at design conferences about both furniture innovation and the critical importance of protecting designers' intellectual property rights. The professional recognition I deserved finally arrived. I began extensive advocacy work helping other industrial designers protect their creative work from exploitation. I developed educational resources about design patents, documentation best practices, and recognizing warning signs of credit theft. I spoke at design schools about my experience, teaching emerging designers about protecting themselves legally and professionally. I mentored young designers facing similar exploitation, sharing strategies that had worked successfully for me. The advocacy work became as meaningful professionally as the furniture design itself. I heard from countless designers who'd experienced similar exploitation, who'd had their work stolen by partners, employers, or manufacturers. Many felt powerless against more established figures in the industry. My story demonstrated that careful documentation and proper legal protection could overcome power imbalances, that design theft could be defeated through systematic preparation and professional legal support. I created online resources explaining design patent law specifically for industrial designers, breaking down complex legal concepts into practical actionable guidance. I partnered with intellectual property attorneys to offer educational workshops about protecting creative work. I worked with design professional organizations to develop best practices and standard contract language that protected designers' intellectual property rights more effectively. 5 years after leaving Rivera Hayes Design Studio, I published a comprehensive book about intellectual property protection for industrial designers that became an industry standard reference. The book combined legal information with practical case studies, including my own experience as a central cautionary tale and educational example. It taught designers how to file design patents properly, document their work systematically, recognize exploitation patterns, and respond effectively legally. Several design schools began assigning it in courses on professional practice. Jonathan's systematic fraud became a widely known cautionary tale taught to design students and discussed in professional circles. His name became synonymous with design theft and credit misappropriation. The severity of his professional destruction served as a warning to others who might consider similar behavior. The design community took intellectual property theft seriously, understanding it as genuine theft deserving serious consequences. 10 years after dissolving our partnership, I received the IDSA Designer of the Year award recognizing both my furniture innovations and my advocacy for proper attribution and intellectual property protection. The recognition validated that transforming personal exploitation into broader advocacy benefiting the entire design community created positive outcomes far beyond individual success. During my acceptance speech at the awards ceremony, I spoke about the importance of systematic documentation, the power of design patent law to protect creative workers, and the necessity of industry accountability for credit theft. I encouraged designers facing exploitation to document everything methodically, consult with attorneys early in the process, and understand they had legal rights regardless of power imbalances or partnership structures. The standing ovation suggested the message resonated deeply with an audience of professional designers who understood these challenges personally. Today, Samantha Rivera Design operates as one of the most respected furniture design practices in the United States, working regularly with major manufacturers across residential and contract markets. My work has been featured in every significant design publication. I've designed furniture that has won numerous awards with my name properly attached. I've built exactly the career I envisioned when I first decided to pursue design independently, creating innovations I'm proud of while maintaining complete creative control and proper attribution. But perhaps the most meaningful outcome is the systemic change my advocacy helped create in the design industry. Design professional organizations now emphasize intellectual property education more strongly. Industry publications regularly cover credit theft issues. Contracts have evolved to protect designers better. Young designers entering the field today have better resources and awareness about protecting their work than I did when I started. That's the ultimate outcome when systematic exploitation meets someone talented enough to succeed independently, patient enough to document everything carefully and comprehensively, and committed enough to transform personal justice into broader advocacy that benefits others facing similar challenges. Jonathan Hayes destroyed his career through his own theft and dishonesty. I built mine on the foundation of furniture I actually designed, protected by laws designed specifically to defend creative workers from exactly the exploitation I experienced.